Why should we know about the fur trade? What effect does it have on our lives? I chose this topic because I have a friend who does living history as a fur trapper. But through my research, I found that the fur trade did more for our history as Americans than I first thought. By the end of our time together, I hope you will understand more about the fur trade, as well as how it shaped our lives as Americans. First, we will discuss how the fur trade in America began, followed by how it grew and how it declined, leaving a legacy on this continent. So how did the fur trade in America begin? Well, I'm glad you asked. Explorers first came to America looking for riches and a trade route to India that they could sail, sailing route to India. Although they never found an easy way to sail to India, they did find furs, which became one of the staples in early American economy. According to Eric J. Dolin, one of the author of the book Fur, Fortune, and Empire, multiple colonies, such as the Massachusetts Bay Colony, made profit for their investors through trading furs. They made profit for the people who paid for their journey across the Atlantic through the fur trade. Native Americans were the primary source of furs for many years. They would trade these furs for European goods such as firearms, cookware, and clothing, and steel blades, like knives and things like that. Although some scholars say that Native American culture was harmed because of the fur trade, because the fur trade made them dependent on European goods. Hyde, the author of Empires, Nations, and Families, says that the fur trade also gave them, the Native Americans, some influence with the government, as well as superior weapons with which to defend their interests. The profitable fur trade grew and expanded just like many large enterprises do today, which is through supply and demand. Through the story of the fur trade, you can see different trading companies and even nations such as England and France fighting, competing for profit and good hunting grounds and stuff like that. The author of the author of Fur, Fortune, and Empire relates several wars, such as the French and Indian War, the War of 1812, and even the American Revolution, to partially being caused by conflicts over the fur trade. Among others, beaver was one of the most important furs during the fur trade. The beaver furs would be shipped to hatteries where it would be made into hats. And because beaver was so popular, in many places it was nearly trapped to extinction. And this is where supply and demand comes in. The supply and demand where beaver was trapped to extinction, hunted to extinction to limited resources in some areas, it would cause people to go looking for better hunting grounds, which is partially what drove people west. Dolin claims that the Lewis and Clark expedition was actually partially motivated by the fur trade. When Lewis and Clark came back with good reports of good beaver pelts in the west, as you can imagine, traders and trappers went west looking for these beaver pelts. So just as supply and demand drove the fur trade west, it also brought the decline of the fur trade. JSTOR Daily states that the beaver had nearly been hunted to extinction, and felting technology had improved so that good hats could be made out of lower quality furs such as rabbits. Dolin also mentions that silk was becoming much more common in hat making during this time, and this fact, coupled with the decline in beaver population, led to the decline of the fur trade. The effects of the fur trade can still be seen today. As I mentioned before, there were wars that completely shaped American history. I mean, you don't get much more influential than the American Revolution, at least influential for America, that is. These influential wars were partially caused by the fur trade. And furthermore, Dolin claims that the mountain men, the tales of these mountain men, sparked interest in the West in potential settlers, as well as the information provided by these mountain men about the geography and about the natives helped pave the way for pioneers. And even he also claims some of these mountain men actually became guides for some of these settlers as they went west. So in summary, Europeans came to America looking for riches and a trading route to India. Although they didn't find a trade route to India, they did find furs, which became one of the staples in early American economy. As they began trading for furs, they found that they could make a profit and grew the enterprise. As time went on, the furs were nearly hunted to extinction, but the legacy of the fur trade still lives on and has affected many areas of our lives as Americans. Thank you.